Hello everyone, and welcome back to another session of Bloodborne PvP and another weapon showcase. This time I am using the Hunter's Saif, which is how I believe that word is pronounced. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm not. Oh well, you know what I'm talking about, and that's what matters. So, this weapon right here was added in with the DLC, and it is really a fantastic weapon. The first form is pretty good, it's got some good range, whereas the second form closes the distance between you and your opponent very quickly. But more on all that later. Let's get started with the basics of the weapon. This weapon requires 9 strength and 11 skill in order to wield. It has a D scaling in strength, a B scaling in skill, and a C scaling in arcane. The physical base damage of the weapon is 180, and for me, the weapon's attack rating is right around 520. So, overall, this weapon is just pretty fantastic. It's great at closing distance when it's in the secondary form, which is the form where it's actually shorter, oddly enough. Most weapons, their first form is the shorter form, and with how reminiscent this weapon is of things like the saw cleaver and the saw spear, you would think it would be the same, but it's actually reversed. So, the first form is going to be the longer of your two forms, with medium speed slashing R1s that have a good range to them. The R2s are very, very wide slashes, and they actually cover about 360 degrees. So those attacks, those R2s, are very useful, especially if you unlock. Other than that, the charged R2 in the first form is a medium speed overhead slash, which can be pretty useful, pretty powerful. So that's that. Most people, however, will choose to use this weapon in its secondary form where it is shorter. Reason being, like I said, it's great for closing distance. So the first form, or rather your second form, Your second form R1s are fast slashes, and you slide or step into the first one, and it closes distance insanely quickly. It is just amazing at what it does. Other than that, your R2s are going to be very fast thrusting attacks, where you also step into them and close distance, and because of that, you actually slide a little with the R2s and have a surprising amount of range. The charged R2, however, can be a little bit, lacking. It leaves a little bit to be desired. It's going to be the shortest attack that the weapon actually has, because it's just a charged overhead smash. It's sort of like it's meant to chop off the person's toes or something like that, but it's a very powerful attack, understandably. So, it's not a bad one to use by any stretch of the imagination. So, other than that, your backstep R1s in the secondary form are a thrust, so you actually go farther forward with the attack from it, with the backstep R1, than you do from the backstep itself. So that can actually be used to catch people off guard, because generally when you do a backstep attack, you either stay at that farther distance back, or alternatively, you move in some way forward. Generally, when you move forward with that, though, you don't go as far forward as you did backwards, and in this case, you've got that benefit of going even farther forward than you did backwards. So there's a clear benefit to being able to do that. It can really throw people off their guard and works very well. With your backstep R2s, they function like the backstep R1s with how the distancing works, but it's a slashing attack instead of thrusting, so that gives you the benefit of having a wider range with it and not needing to be as accurate if the person has sidestepped or something along those lines. So, again, something with a very clear benefit and a very useful time and noticeable place for the attack to be done in. Other than that, though, that's pretty much it as far as the attacks on this weapon are concerned. Transform attacks, actually. When you're in your first form, and this is actually something that's kind of difficult to keep in mind while you're doing it, but it does have an effect on how quickly you hit your opponent with the transform attack. The transform attacks originate on different sides depending on what attack you had done previously, which is kind of cool. So, in the first form, the transform from the first to the second form is a quick slash that you step into, but as I said, the direction depends on which attack you had done previously or what action you had done previously. So it goes from right to left if you did a dodge, backstep, charged R2, or running R2 for the transform, or prior to the transform. And it goes left to right if you do an R1, R2, or a running R1 and do a transform. So, it's something a little difficult to keep in mind. In the end, it might not matter too terribly much, but in some instances, it will allow you to get an attack off a little bit sooner than you would have if it had come from the other direction. So it's something to definitely keep in mind. So, as far as the pros of this weapon are concerned, the biggest pro of this weapon, I would say, would be its ability to close the distance. It's just fantastic. You have a lot of different attacks that do it in its secondary form, and in its first form, you got the wider range, you got the longer range. So you've got a good range and good situational use with either form. Other than that, the damage is pretty fantastic as well, and it's got really good speed, so you can build up damage very, very quickly with this thing. You attack very quickly as well. You can stun lock people easily who are trying to R1 spam you and stun lock you. Overall, it's just a really good thing to use if you have an aggressive fighting style, like I do, for example. Other than that, free aiming the uncharged R2 in the first form can actually be very useful, and even free aiming a unlocked. If you do an unlocked running R2 in the first form, you can get some people off guard with that. It works really well. I ended up doing that in one of the fights. I believe that already was shown. So, hit, I think, like 640 damage with it when that happened. Either way, something to keep in mind. It's a good strategy. Would recommend to a friend. Other than that, though, guys, the cons of the weapon, at times the stagger can leave a little bit to be desired, but that's just about it. There's really not too much else other than that as far as cons for this weapon. I mean, I might be forgetting something here or there, but otherwise, I think we've covered pretty much everything. If you guys have any cons that I'm not thinking of, then please feel free to leave them in the comments. Same goes if there's any pros that you think that I missed. I'm open for a discussion on it. Doesn't bother me in any way. So, let's have it, guys. Other than that, though, that's all I've got left to say. Next weapon showcase will either be, well, one of two things. They're both ready for commentary, so in the comments, guys, I'd like you to say a number, either 1 or 2, and based on that, I'll make a decision. It's either going to be, in no particular order, the Boom Hammer or the Beast Cutter. So, in no particular order, it's going to be one of those two. Only I know which one is number 1 and which one's number 2, so give me a number, guys, and we'll go from there. But anyway, I had to split this fight because there was a very, very long segment of time between what had happened in the first section and the second section. Nothing really important happened, it was just very, very slow. But anyway, guys, hope you all enjoyed this video, found it helpful in one way or another. Please like, subscribe, and all that good stuff, and I will see you all next time.